Trump surrenders and raises the white flag at the Strait of Hormuz? Yes, dear viewers, and this was actually expected. The Operation Freedom that Trump boasted about collapsed in just 48 hours. So, has the superpower really surrendered? Is there a trap being set right now between China and Iran? What are the 14 clauses that could end the Epstein Alliance's influence in the Middle East forever? The countdown has begun, less than 48 hours left. Our breakdown of the moment of truth, how is that? This is our topic for today. Stay with us. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings, and welcome back today, God willing, to another episode of the Opinion series, which we always dedicate to following the latest developments and updates in this conflict taking place in the Middle East between Iran and the Epstein Alliance. Today, dear viewers, we are witnessing very rapid developments. In the end, as expected, America issues a decision to suspend Operation Freedom, which was announced to open the Strait of Hormuz. Trump announces surrender after the disastrous failure that this operation or project faced, and he announces the suspension of the operation. On what grounds? On what grounds? To open the door for negotiations, and that there is a new proposal on the table and we are getting closer to negotiations, and so on. So, dear viewers, Operation Freedom lasted for about 2 days without achieving any notable results. It did not succeed in passing even a single ship through the Strait of Hormuz. So even if we go with this American narrative that says 3 cargo ships passed through, we're talking about 2 days since it started and only 3 ships have passed. This is a complete failure. In 2 days, more than 300 ships usually pass through the Strait of Hormuz, not just 3 ships. So, as I said, this is a total failure. This operation will have no benefit at all if it continues, even if it goes on for months, even with these 2 American destroyers that have been deployed. And as their images were published via satellite, showing that they are inside the Gulf waters and that they passed through the Strait of Hormuz, some say that they were originally inside the Gulf waters. They were part of the US 5th Fleet stationed in Bahrain. The reality is completely different from what Trump is claiming today. That's one thing. On another note, just so everyone knows, the exchange of proposals between Iran and the US through the Pakistani mediator has never stopped at all. Throughout the past days, there has always been an exchange of proposals. Iran sends a proposal, and the US responds with a different proposal. So, the claim that suspending Operation Freedom is to give space for negotiations is completely untrue and unrealistic. It means it's just a pretext that Trump is clinging to, something Trump is holding on to, as he admits to this failure, the failure of this adventure that he called Operation Freedom since the beginning of this war. And he announces a new plan or a new step just to cover up the previous step, to cover up the failure of the previous operation. So instead of announcing the end of this operation and admitting this failure, he announces a new operation to distract the international community and public opinion, and to divert them from the results of the previous operation. This is something we have tracked as observers. We have been following this since the beginning of this war. So Trump is in real trouble, and he is just trying as much as possible to cover one thing with another. So today Trump came out with a post. What did he say in it? In it, he says that based on requests from Pakistan and other countries, he didn't name these countries, based on requests from Pakistan and other countries. And in order to give a chance for diplomatic efforts to achieve a full and final agreement with Iran, we agreed to suspend the Freedom Project. So if America is really achieving successes in this operation and opening a safe route in the Strait of Hormuz, then why did it stop this operation? Why did it even need an agreement with Iran in the first place to open the Strait of Hormuz? And with that, America would have achieved a historic breakthrough. a major global success. This would have been recorded in the media and in all history books as a military victory, as a success in opening the Strait of Hormuz. The truth, as I said, is that there was a complete failure in this operation, Operation Freedom, which made Trump use these negotiations and the prospect of reaching an agreement as a pretext to stop the operation. And here, everyone should know that President Trump, when he recently held a meeting, we talked about it, a meeting with military leaders and with American intelligence. He had on the table a complete plan for Operation Freedom, and this plan was meant as a last military attempt, perhaps before moving toward an agreement or before military escalation. It was important before the next step, meaning they prepared a ready-made plan for him from start to finish, so that if the plan succeeded, that would be it. America would have achieved a major victory over Iran, of course, and America will actually appear as if it is still a superpower, still a force capable of intervening in any region in the world, and Trump will use that in his election campaign. But if this plan fails, they have put in place a withdrawal scenario as an alternative. And they set up this pretext that Trump could cling to at that time, which is the existence of negotiations and a near agreement. This is exactly what happened, a complete failure of this project, so Trump came up with this pretext. So here we come to what I told you yesterday, which is that Trump actually needs to stop this war before his upcoming visit to China. The visit will be in the middle of this month, and all the organizational and logistical preparations and so on started a few days ago, roughly 2 days ago. All these events and developments are happening at a time when Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi is in China. He is making a visit to China. Araghchi is visiting China. I mean, right in the midst of these preparations for Trump's visit, and just about 1 week before the scheduled date of this visit, which means that his visit to China. This has a very significant impact on the course of this visit, on Trump's visit, and what will result from this visit. China is saying it very clearly today. These attacks on Iran must stop. China says that what is happening in the Middle East is illegal, meaning it is an act of aggression. China says that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz must be guaranteed, and therefore ensuring this safe passage can only happen according to the measures taken by Iran, the party that controls and dominates the Strait of Hormuz. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, when he met with Araghchi and held talks with him today, said that the Middle East is going through a critical stage today. He called it a critical stage. And here, pay close attention. Since it is a critical stage, China cannot stand with America against Iran. Why do I say this? Because some people today are only talking superficially, just to promote this American narrative. They say that China has profitable trade with America worth more than $300 billion, while its profitable trade with Iran nearly reaches $40 billion. That's why they say China will choose America for this reason, as if it's only about money and the volume of trade, while in reality it's much bigger than that. Because there's the issue of the Strait of Hormuz. That would then mean the collapse of the Iranian regime, and the collapse of the Iranian regime would then mean that Iran would become an American sphere of influence. And if Iran becomes an area of influence, it will be the first step towards encircling China and towards turning all the countries surrounding China into either areas of tension and conflict or into American spheres of influence. America will not stop at Iran. This is a reality we have been living since the end of World War II, since the Cold War, and so on. The American and Western expansion kept growing country by country, until it reached Ukraine with Russia. And this war between Russia and Ukraine is the same thing in this region. If Iran is defeated in this conflict, it will be a defeat for China and a defeat for Russia, not just a defeat for Iran. Because first, when America's prestige returns again, many other countries in Asia, Africa, or even in the Americas will be affected as well. The door will be open for China and for Russia. The fear of America and the fear of repeating the Iran scenario will be considered a successful scenario if Iran is defeated. Therefore, it is a decisive struggle for China, a struggle that determines China's future. So China cannot choose to make $300 billion in trade with America and destroy its own future or future security. The matter is very serious, much bigger than that. Therefore, when China says the conflict must end and the Strait of Hormuz must be opened, it means according to Iranian conditions, not according to American demands. Arakchi, when he met with the Chinese foreign minister today, said that Iran only needs a fair and comprehensive agreement with America, and said that it will not accept anything less. Iran will only accept this agreement. The agreement included these Iranian demands, the project we've talked about in many episodes, and he says they will only accept this agreement. Also, we find that Araki said he appreciates China's firm stance in this conflict when it stood with Iran, and he said that cooperation between China and Iran will be strengthened more than ever before. This means these statements clearly explain the Chinese position, and how this visit he is making to China shows that China understands the game very well. It means China will not fall into Trump's trap. It will continue to put pressure on Trump until he lets Iran do what it wants in the Strait of Hormuz. That is, to open the Strait of Hormuz. And according to this new system that Iran is preparing for today, there is a new reality taking shape. Trump has failed in all attempts aimed at subduing Iran. Today he says he stopped Operation Freedom because there is significant progress toward reaching an agreement with Iran. So what is this agreement like? Today, the real question being asked is whether they are actually close to an agreement, or is it just a trick to cover up the failure of Operation Freedom? Why do I say this? Because when we look at this document, and these 14 articles that are said to be signed as a first step towards negotiations and ending the war, we find them. It fulfills all the Iranian demands and conditions, meaning these demands and conditions that Iran has raised from the beginning, since the start of this truce, a month ago. So this raises a question. Does this mean that Trump has really agreed to these conditions and will sign this agreement? And will Netanyahu just let him sign this agreement like that? I mean, Israel is saying today that it has no knowledge of this agreement, and on the contrary, it is preparing for escalation. So, what exactly is happening? Does this just mean that Trump is using this as a pretext to cover up the failure of Operation Freedom, like a trick? I mean, in the end, as usual, he will turn around and refuse to sign, because Iran will not surrender and will not give up its demands completely. So how can people say today that the agreement is close? Will Trump really make concessions? I don't think so. Today, Iran announced a new mechanism for managing traffic in the Strait of Hormuz and announced an official email for ships that want to pass through so they can learn about the new rules and regulations in the Strait of Hormuz. This means there is a new reality that Iran is imposing. Despite all the talk about Operation Freedom and so on, there is a new reality that Iran is imposing. There is Iranian insistence, not Iranian concession as Trump claims. Iran says Israeli ships will never pass through the Strait of Hormuz, even if the war ends. And it says that American ships, countries that are part of this alliance, like the UAE for example, will always face restrictions such as inspections and so on, while it says that everyone will have to pay a fee for passage. This is a project currently proposed in the Iranian parliament and it will be approved soon. So, will Trump agree to this today? We are in the last 48 hours before the end of the truce that Trump extended, meaning that on Friday, which is a decisive day, Trump will either have to sign the agreement he spoke forcefully about today, extend the truce for a few more days, or return to war again. That means Trump now has only 3 options on the table. He must decide exactly which path he will choose within the next 48 hours. So we will also see how things develop in the coming hours, because right now we are experiencing very rapid developments almost every hour. There is always something new happening. We will see where things are heading, and we will be back, God willing. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.